1 strait, 2 announcements, 1 retraction, a separate plan to charge every passing ship a transit fee. The Red Sea entered a new order between the 22nd and the 25th of April 2026. Or it did not. This is the Bab El-Mandeb ledger. The Bab El-Mandeb is the southern gate of the Red Sea, a 26-kilometer-wide chokepoint connecting the Gulf of Aden to the global maritime trunk that runs from the Indian Ocean to the Suez Canal. Approximately 12% of global seaborne trade passes through this gate on any normal day. The coastal states are Djibouti and Eritrea on the African side, Yemen on the Arabian side, with Somalia adjacent to the south through its Puntland and Awdal coasts. The legal regime governing transit is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, Articles 37 through 44, which establishes transit passage as a non-suspendable right available to all vessels of all flags, civilian and military. Coastal states cannot unilaterally close the strait. Coastal states cannot unilaterally toll the strait. The events of the last 7 days have tested both clauses. On April 22nd and 23rd, statements attributed to the Somali government announced that the Bab El-Mandeb had been closed to vessels affiliated with the State of Israel. The cited justification, reported through The New Arab, was the Israeli recognition of the self-declared Republic of Somaliland in December 2025 and the appointment of an Israeli ambassador to Hargeisa in April 2026. The closure was framed in symbolic and political terms, drawing a connection between the maritime threshold and a sovereignty dispute that the federal government in Mogadishu does not formally recognize. On April 25th, Somalia Today reported that the Somali government had denied the closure and characterized the earlier statements as a misinterpretation of remarks by a Somali envoy. The retraction was issued through the same channel that had carried the announcement 72 hours earlier. 2 statements. April 22nd. We have closed the strait. April 25th. We have not closed the strait. Between those 2 statements, no vessel was turned back at the gate. The legal architecture sets the constraint. Under UNCLOS, Articles 37 through 44, transit passage through international straits is non-suspendable and applies to all flags. A coastal state cannot, by its own pronouncement, close the strait. The geographic reach of Somali jurisdiction over the Bab El-Mandeb threshold is itself constrained, as analyzed by The New Arab. The Yemeni coast on the Arabian side and the Djibouti-Eritrea coast on the African side are the operationally decisive lines for any vessel routing through the gate. Across the same 48-hour window, Lloyd's List reported on April 24th that a different mechanism was under discussion at the senior leadership level of the Houthi movement in Yemen, sourced through a United Kingdom maritime security firm whose identity was not disclosed in the publication. The mechanism is a transit fee on commercial vessels passing through the Red Sea. FDD's Long War Journal cross-validated the report on the same day, characterizing the proposal as a structural revenue channel positioned as an alternative to direct engagement of commercial shipping, the doctrine that defined the Houthi campaign of late 2023 and 2024. Yemen Monitor, citing the same United Kingdom security firm, framed the discussion as a search for de facto control over the strategic waterway. The historical baseline for the magnitude of this revenue stream is established. The United Nations Panel of Experts on Yemen, in its October 2024 report, cited through Lloyd's List and the Long War Journal, estimated that Houthi-controlled checkpoints in northern Yemeni territory and the western Red Sea coast had generated approximately 180 million United States dollars per month, exceeding $2 billion per year, in what the report described as illegal transit fees on overland and maritime traffic, with fuel cargoes, food shipments, and commercial freight flowing through nodes including the Hodeidah port complex. The geographic distribution of those checkpoints spans the northern governorates of Sada and Haja and the Red Sea coastal corridor of Hodeidah, areas administered by the movement since the 2014 phase of the Yemen conflict. The proposed Red Sea mechanism is the maritime extension of an established, audited model. The financial mechanism, in the explicit framing of the Long War Journal report, channels resources to a movement that has publicly declared steadfast support for Iran across the present conflict cycle. The financial transmission to global shipping arrives through the Lloyd's of London insurance market. Red Sea hull and protection and indemnity premiums have been elevated since the Houthi commercial vessel engagement campaign of late 2023 and 2024, during which the United States Office of Naval Intelligence documented over 100 maritime engagements across the Bab El-Mandeb and the southern Red Sea, and premiums remain elevated through the present cycle. The Lloyd's Joint War Committee listed areas guidance, the document that determines additional war risk premium loadings on hull and cargo policies, has carried the southern Red Sea and the Bab El-Mandeb on its active list since 2024 and has been updated through April 2026 to reflect both the toll discussion and the ambiguous closure conditions in parallel. The Suez Canal Authority of Egypt, whose annual transit revenue under normal volume reaches approximately 10 billion United States dollars, books a direct revenue impact from any sustained reduction in Bab El-Mandeb throughput, and the impact compounds Egyptian fiscal pressure that has been acute through the conflict cycle. Egyptian sovereign borrowing costs price every percentage point of Suez throughput volatility. The major container lines, Hapag-Lloyd of Germany, Mediterranean Shipping Company of Switzerland, Maersk of Denmark, and CMA-CGM of France, are operating each Asia-Europe sailing through a parallel cost calculation. The first option is to maintain the Bab El-Mandeb route under elevated war risk premium and the prospect of a published toll. The second option is to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope, which adds approximately 14 sailing days, approximately 20% to bunker fuel cost, and a substantial schedule disruption on the Asia-Europe lane. As Time magazine observed on April 8, the Hormuz crisis at the eastern end of the global maritime trunk has compounded the strategic weight of the Bab El-Mandeb at the western end. The two gates are now read as a single integrated risk surface. The strategic question is no longer geographic. It is the per-voyage arithmetic of premium plus toll versus fuel plus time. 3 scenarios resolve the next 5 days. In the first formal toll publication, the Houthi leadership issues a published tariff. Lloyd's list intelligence transit counts adjust to a fee-paying baseline, and the underlying UNCLOS dispute moves toward an Egyptian-led referral to the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea under Article 287. In the second, retraction holds, the Somali clarification stands, the Houthi toll proposal does not become public policy, and the status quo of elevated insurance under sustained transit volume continues. In the third, ambiguity hardens. Neither the closure nor the toll is formalized. Premiums remain elevated through the next quote cycle, and Cape of Good Hope rerouting expands incrementally on the Asia-Europe lane. The signals to watch over the next 5 days are a written Somali government communique, a Houthi public toll tariff, the Lloyd's List intelligence daily transit count for the Bab El-Mandeb, and the daily insurance premium moves reported through Marsh and Howden. The Bab El-Mandeb does not require closure to be controlled. It does not require a published toll to generate a financial transmission. The events of the last 7 days have shown that the strait's status can be modified by an announcement, by a retraction, and by a discussion at a leadership level whose identity remains confidential. In the Red Sea, passage is no longer a question of geography. It is a question of negotiation.